that we're starting to see herd immunity already. Okay. Now, they're not out there saying this because, after all, that would be to give up, control. We're gonna be just maintain control over you for just as long as we can, and that's what's going to happen. I really would have thought they would have let this thing go after President Trump was drummed out of office. Right. I mean, really, right. The last indignity, as soon as he rolled out, now we can go back to life. But oh no. Okay, so it's been an extra 8 weeks of this nonsense. So we're getting things down there where it needs to be. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine's coming out, and it's nice that it's doing it, but the problem with it is it's not nearly as effective as the 2-dose Moderna or Pfizer. So if you're going to go to the trouble of doing it, why in the world would you do something that's relatively 1/3 less effective? That makes no sense to me. So what I tell my patients, and what I'm going to tell you, and I'm probably going to get hate mail for it, and I don't know that I necessarily care, and it's this. It's that you want to go with the thing that's 95 to 97% effective, not the one that's 65 to 68% effective, because your life depends on it. So would you necessarily get a parachute that's good 65% of the time? I've jumped when I was in the military. I don't think I would have taken that set of odds.
I'm going to say those odds are not very good. Really, I wouldn't have done it either.
Not so hot, okay? So, but what's it good for? Single shot? Well, when the folks, what do they call them? Now they call them illegal immigrants.
No.
Oh, you can't, or illegal aliens. Displaced. No, they're not even displaced.
No.
Undocumented.
That's it. Undocumented.
So
people.
Rather than just let them loose, we're going to give them the single shot deal, because you and I both know they're never going to come back for the second shot.
But they're going to vote Democrat.
You got it.
Okay, just checking.
That's the way it works. Then I'm just wondering how the Governor Cuomo is going to get all those dead people to vote for him again. They're probably annoyed.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of an interesting bit of politics going on today. So if you're keeping up with these sorts of things, you're probably every bit as disgusted as I am.
Probably.
Looking at the COVID $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, that's just a joke. So 9% of it actually goes for COVID, and the rest of it just goes for all kinds of things that they want.
Bridge from New York to Canada,
tunnel.
Underground tunnel.
All kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, they're going to do bailouts for red states and all kinds of cool things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we're letting them do it. We are just letting them do this.
They passed it without asking the Republicans.
Of course, there was no support. So they're going to go ahead and do this stuff. And you and I are going to end up paying for it. And then they're going to say, but we had a mandate. A mandate usually implies something more than just a trickle of people more than the other person.
Sure.
A supermajority, overwhelming support. Not, gee, we squeaked by, which is what happened here. So I think we're going to be seeing a whipsaw in 2 years, just the same thing that happened the last time we had one of these yahoos in the White House. And then we're going to end up with essentially 2 more years of nothing, which is a whole lot better than what we're getting right now.
Well,
so if you like stalemate, okay, it's going to come. Okay, it's going to have to come.
Now, Doc, the one thing, I went to the hardware store, which you can go to, but it says you have to wear a mask even if you've had your COVID vaccines.
That makes no sense, does it?
It doesn't.
But the problem
people
is...
People are confused.
Well, they are confused. And what you have to have is one set of rules for everybody, in spite of the fact that we're not all the same. Oh. So if you go around, as I do, with my little card that says I've had both doses, and I've got antibodies to prove it, okay, because I went the extra mile on that one. It doesn't matter, because I might offend some stupid person who doesn't know the difference between that and wearing 2 masks, one over the face and one over some other part of the body where it really does more good.
I saw a guy walking down Lake Emma Road today all by himself, not a person
wearing
for a mile, wearing a mask.
Yeah, we saw one of those on the road. There was a guy out there that was picking up garbage. God bless him for being out there picking up junk along the side of the road with a mask on. He wasn't wearing gloves. Okay, God knows what he's going to pick up from the garbage he's picking up, but he won't breathe in any cooties. So, what have we got? One set of rules fits everybody, because you don't want to tick off some cat lady someplace who's going to report you to the local authorities. It's bad news. So what do I think? I'm a little irritated right now, and then we'll pack you into an airplane, okay, at a distance of 24 inches, okay. Now that is really a grand way if you want to spread infectious disease, but that's okay, because we've got to support our airlines and our hotels and restaurants and whatnot. So what do? Get the darn vaccine. Don't get the J&J one, in spite of the fact, but I only have to get poked one time. What are you, some kind of sissy? Just get the right one, get it done right, and move on with life. And then if you want to put your money where Doc puts his, okay, go with the smart money on this one, and that would be to get an antibody measurement titer. That's the amount of antibody that you have in your bloodstream. Medicare covers it. And then if you're uninsured, the CARES Act covers it. I mean, so you can't really lose on this one. So don't you really want to know how much antibody you have? Because that's the only way you're going to know whether or not that silly mask you're wearing is really necessary or not. So, Tess here, my wife, her antibody levels in the 20 to 30 range. Generally speaking, when somebody gets the disease, their antibodies are 1 to 2. Now, the units aren't important here because I haven't made up the units yet. All right. So what happens is that, we've studied over 10,000 people with this, people that get the disease and people that get the inoculations. Those that get the disease rarely get an antibody level over 2 or 3. One of my former girlfriends, she hit it in the 20s, but that's the only one that did it. And so most everybody else is 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 3, 1 or 2, 1 or 2, maybe the odd 3. And so then when people start getting this vaccine, it's hitting 10, 15, 20, 30. And you're going to wonder, why does that make any difference? And I'm going to put it in a way that I think will make the greatest sense to you. Yeah. And that's that I want you to imagine that you're holding in your hand a styrofoam cup full of antibody. And that's what your body has. And that's what you get when you get when you get the disease, a styrofoam cup full of antibodies. Now, you poke it with a pencil. Okay, and it'll drain out at a fairly predictable rate. So how long will it last? It may not last very long. Usually it's 3 months for people that get the disease, 3 to 6 months, and you're done. When you end up getting the COVID vaccine, it's like having a gallon in your hand with the same size hole. So it will last a year or thereabouts, because you'll end up with 20 to 30 times much more of the gamma globulin. So get the vaccine. Just go out and do it, whether you've had the disease or not. Just suck it up, roll up your sleeve.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Fine. When we come back, we're going to answer a couple of questions we've got on the text line. Also taking your phone calls, 407-422-1212. Text line's 23680. You can follow us on the social media. We are live. During the commercial breaks, we answer questions on Facebook, Stages of Life Medical Institute, as well as on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube.
I just thought of the right units to use.
We're
going to call them Florida units, or FUs.
Hey, okay, we'll be right back. I'm going to push this button. Wait, where'd the button go? Oh, no, wait. Okay. Now I'm closing out this one because it sounds horrible. And we're going to go to end. And we're going to go over here. Hi, guys on the news. Thank you so much for watching. Hi, everybody. How are you?
Hola.
Yeah. What up? All right. So, okay, I think we're back and connecting in. Okay, so we are here on the Facebook and some other places. Let's see. And nobody's got any questions for us today. What, you people?
How do you spell relief?
ROLAIDS.
Yeah, that one spells it Excedrin, so you're going to love it. We're going to call a little text coming up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Excedrin one? Yeah, I saw that. Now we know where that hum's coming from. Mm-hmm.
The good news is I can't hear it.
Oh, that is good news. Really is good news. It's hot in here, or am I just having another hot flash?
A little bit of both.
Damn it. Ben wants to know if you've been vaccinated. Has it been determined that you are no longer contagious? He's on our Facebook feed.
That's actually a better question. So once you have the antibodies with most diseases, it means that you're on the mend with it. So the way you figure this out, and the way I did it with myself, was I did what's called an antigen study. And that was that little thing in the front of your nose where you see whether or not you have any virus particles in your saliva or in your nasal drippings. Uh-huh. And if it's not there, you're not contagious. With a disclaimer that the limits of detection, okay, with the Sophia machine, which is the one that most people use, is 3,200 viral particles per ml. And you're going to go, well, that sounds like a lot. It really isn't. Okay, it's not a great deal. So we're finding people that'll be negative on the PCR, but that are positive. They're positive on the PCR, but negative on the antigen. And these people are still very contagious. So you don't really know. And probably the best way, you're going to love this one, to find out if somebody's contagious is to do a rectal swab.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Yeah, you go down below. And the reason why this is the case is that you may be clearing it faster in the respiratory tract than you do in the gastrointestinal tract. And the coronavirus is a GI virus. So if you want to have some fun with this one, go on Google. It's one of the few times that I think Google's worth anything. Go on Google and look up Chinese COVID rectal That's RECTAL, swab. And you'll be shocked at what you find, because that's how they're doing it now in China.
I don't want to know.
That's how it's done.
Again, not wanting to know these things.
You know, in Australia, they're down under, so it makes sense. But in China, it's not so much. That was bad.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I tried hard on that one. So what have we got?
What have we got? It's time for us to get back into the show here. 10 seconds. Stand by. You're going back on the radio. 94.1, 93.1, 540 AM, and the iHeartRadio app. Welcome back to Stages of Life Radio. We do this for you Sunday afternoons, 4 until 5 o'clock here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. I am Melissa Fox, and Dr. David Klein is in. The doctor is in. We got a text here we need to take care of. He says, had back of the neck muscle tension headaches for 50 years. I am 71. What can I do for relief other than Excedrin?
Well, what the question implies, okay, and it's kind of a cool question. It implies that Excedrin gives him relief.
I know.
All right, now that's important, because the most common cause of headache of that nature, muscle tension headache, is something called occipital neuralgia, which is a tendonitis of a muscle called the semispinalis capitis, a second one called splenius capitis, where it attaches on the back of the neck to the head. They're elevators of the head. And so when you take the Excedrin, it settles down the tendonitis. So there are a couple other things you can do with this that work pretty darn well. Excedrin probably being the safest of the bunch if you don't mind the risk of ulcer of the stomach. So what we do is we can use topical anti-inflammatories, one called Voltaren. 1% gel works really, really well. It's over the counter. What works better is the diclofenac 3% gel, which you can put in the same area, but it's a prescription item. If you're 71 years old, Medicare should cover it, the prescription coverage, so it won't cost you more than $10 or $15. But then I have some people that come in that are going completely out of their mind with a headache, and I'll drop a needle, a small needle. It's a 27 gauge. It's a tuberculosis needle into the back of the area there. Put in about 20 milligrams of a steroid called Depomedrol, and then the pain goes away.
Did that to me a couple of times.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it really was scary and then impressive.
Yeah, and it's just, does it hurt? And the answer is not particularly.
Not really, but it's a little scary and
awkward.
Well,
you get some joker coming at the back of your head with a needle.
Like
Especially,
I said, it's kind of scary when Dr. Dave comes at you with a needle to the back of your head.
Well, when I told you this is the President Lincoln procedure, you lost all the color in your face.
Right, but then when you told me that you'd done it to test, I was like, well.
So that's the deal. And I had a patient that had a similar issue with this, who was in her 70s, one of my first headache patients when I was first in practice. Mm-hmm. This lady came in. I thought I knew my business. And she goes, well, I've had this headache every day for the past 52 years. And, what happened? And she told me the story when she was a young girl. She fell off a horse, landed on a fence post, and had pain ever since. Can you fix this, doctor? And I'm 25 years old. I don't know whether I'll be able to fix it or not, but I will give it my best effort. So I said, let me think about this for a while.
Sure.
So I came back about 20 minutes later, and I said, I think I got an answer for you. So, but we're going to try this out and see if it works. If it does, then we're going to be on to something. So I went ahead and injected the medication in at the occipital ridge, taking out the nerve and muscle at the same time. And a moment or two later, okay, so I asked her, I said, okay, how does it feel? Is it hurting? She goes, well, I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? The only way I'm going to get any feedback. What do you mean you don't know? And she goes, well, I don't know, because I've never been without pain, so I don't know what that feels like. The fact was, she did not know what it felt like not to have pain, so it took her a while to integrate it, and so I did it twice more, and that was the end of her pain.
Wow.
And so it was very, but I learned a lesson. Okay, one of which is you got to ask the right question to get the right answer, and the second thing is give yourself at least 20 minutes to figure something out. Otherwise, you're going to look, you miss out a lot of opportunities. So, and then somebody else came back with an even better remedy for a 50-year headache, and says divorce.
Yes.
And
thank you.
That's actually not unreasonable.
Yeah, text line's open as well. 322.
Well, no, I mean, I was married once before, and I considered it to be a bit of a headache, and frequently I had an even lower opinion of her. Yeah.
It's bad. We just let it go. 407-422-1212.
So in any event, so we're talking about ways to prevent cancer today. Okay, and you're going to think, it's just, you come down with the big C, you're done. Well, the fact is that may have been true at one time, but each and every week that passes, each and every month that passes, we're ending up with newer and better ways to keep people alive with the big C. But what doesn't get a lot of attention is what do you do to prevent it? Because, it's a whole lot better to prevent these things than to go through radiation, chemo, or some of these other happinesses, the surgeries. None of them are considered to be much fun. So what do you do to prevent cancer? And so you have to sit back, open your mind up here a little bit. Okay, you got to open your mind up to possibilities that you may not have considered. So what, is the number one cause of public health cause of cancer? The answer is smoking. So we're going to discount that right now because you've already heard it. What might be number two? Okay, well, it could be diabetes. Now that one we're not going to throw away. And the reason I'm going to do that is that diabetes is not something that you keep, and is yours forever. It doesn't work that way. So what causes diabetes in adults? Childhood diabetes, type 1 diabetes is something very different. But with adults, you may become insulin dependent. That does not make you type 1, not at all. But what happens is something breaks. You go your entire life, and then all of a sudden, one day the doctor tells you you're diabetic. Do you think for a minute that it happened overnight? Do you really think for a minute that it's something that just occurred? And the answer is no. It's a process, and it may take 10, 15 years to happen, but it does happen. So why is this important? Because all the while that your blood sugar was normal and your A1C would thereby be fairly normal, your insulin level is shooting up. It's going higher and higher and higher and higher before the system breaks down. It's called insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome X. Now, why is this important? Because when you become hyperinsulinemic, it increases your risk of cancer. And the reason is something called the Warburg effect. And so if you have a friend that understands about cars and understands about turbos and understands about what it takes to put a blower in a car and force feed it air, it's the same thing that happens with insulin, sugar, and cancer cells. It force feeds them and makes them, it turns cancer cells into like, 5-year-old kids that you give coffee, chocolate, and a puppy. They go nuts on you. Okay. So the trick is for cancer prevention is putting the insulin level as low as you can. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. Another one, which is really, really easy. It's a $6 a month fix, and most people aren't really with it enough to do it. Well, I don't want to have to do that every day. Okay, well, you're one of those individuals that's going to make more room for the rest of us. It's called Darwinian. It's just survival of the fittest. So what do you do? And the answer is vitamin D3. Cuts your risk of cancer in half. It cuts your risk of MS by 40%. And it costs about $6 or less per month. And yet, getting people to do this is sometimes about as easy as pulling teeth. Here, ma'am, open your mouth up. I'm going to be pulling a couple teeth. Well, I don't want to have to take a capsule every day. Then don't. Okay? Next, you know what I mean? It's just the way these things work. Getting the insulin level down is a whole lot harder in most people and takes a little bit more time and a whole lot more money than getting the vitamin D level up. So what do you take? If you watch television, okay, as I sometimes do, sometimes way too much, you'll be seeing all kinds of advertisements for all kinds of supplements that promise all manners of different things. Now, when they work, the way they work is by lowering insulin. That's how you lose weight, by the way, is by lowering your insulin. Now, there are many ways you can do that with your diet, but with the supplements, you can do it with a handful of things that are easily obtained and not terribly expensive. Now, in aggregate, it's going to cost you about $80, $100 a month, which beats the heck out of getting diabetes or dying 15 years too early. So what are the examples of this? Inositol is a beautiful one. Okay, it's a sugar that the body doesn't use. It goes in, gets absorbed. And now inositol is kind of neat because your body uses it in the production of energy. So, inositol hexaphosphate is what actually the receptor needs, the insulin receptor needs to push blood sugar into the cell. So inositol, olive leaf extract, vanadium, vanadiol sulfate, chromium polynicotinate, the one you want to use, quercetin. These things are herbals. They're minerals, they're vitamins, and what they do is they fix the piece of the insulin receptor that causes the insulin levels to have to go up because of insulin resistance. So this is really what you want to do. These are pieces that the body is supposed to see in the diet, but for whatever reason, you're not getting it. Big surprise. When you go out to eat, what do? Give you potato chips? I guarantee you there's not a lot of nutrients in those potato chips. Why don't you get yourself a salad? You get the side salad for the same thing as the French fries, right? Why don't you get something that's actually going to give you some nutritional value? So I take them as supplements because I don't know necessarily that what we're getting in our diet is sufficient in amount to get the job done. So you need to be concerned with rate, route, and amount. So a lot of these products do something called sprinkling. You're going to go, okay, what's this? Klein, what are you talking about? Sprinkle. A sprinkle in the industry, okay, is putting a little bit of something in there so you can put it on the ingredients list, knowing full well that most of the people that do the reading of those ingredients lists don't know what the target amount is. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, here it is. Now, don't pay any attention to the amount because really it doesn't matter, when in fact it does. So, preventing cancer with nutrients. And then we're going to get back to diet with it in just a second and after these important announcements.
Very good. That's Dr. David Klein. You can check him out at stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com or schedule an appointment as a new patient starting tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You can talk to Iris at 407-679-3337. All right, now we're going to take a quick break. Like Dr. Dave said, we'll be back to answer some of your questions. You are listening to Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Let's see this. Do this. Hey, are you there? Dick? Bob, I mean?
Yo, what's up?
Hey, Bob. Something wrong there. Okay, Bob.
Yeah, we're having some difficulty with the feed, the audio feed.
It's really not that bad. You can talk to him right there.
Oh, okay. We'll do this a little differently. All right. So, Bob, what's up?
Hey, so in 1993, a guy by the name of Dr. Kerry Mullis won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of the PCR technique.
Right.
Pretty cool guy.
Okay.
Apparently, he was tripping on LSD at the time. Huge breakthrough in
Okay.
thought.
All right.
No shame in that game.
Hey, what can I say?
Yeah.
Timothy Leary is a really smart guy too until he burned his brains out with it. Yeah.
All right. So what's the
Yeah,
point,
you
Bob?
don't want to go too far with it. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. So what's your yeah?
His technology, or his technique rather, is the basis and the gold standard of testing in virology right now.
Actually, it's more than that. I own two PCR machines. So, you know what?
You do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a nerd. I've got two of them. So what would you like to know about
So
it?
then you understand that with every cycle of the testing, you're able to get a little bit more.
No, let me give you the fast way. Okay. Now, what you do with PCR, which stands for polymerase chain reaction, is that for every cycle, it doubles the amount of RNA or DNA that you happen to have in your sample. It doubles. So if you do that 30 to 40 times, you end up with an enormous amount of the RNA or DNA. So it makes it easier to figure out what you're doing. So like the machine that I've got up in Jacksonville will do it 40 times, which is really, really cool, okay? So we're able to see just remarkably small amounts of viral as well as bacterial DNA or RNA and make diagnoses we were unable to make earlier.
1 minute.
So
it's a great excuse to find a boogeyman. And as you know, he was quite outspoken about how skewed that is and how if you look hard enough, you're bound to find just about anything. But what's truly the culprit?
In what?
It's not COVID-19. It's not HIV. Those are all nothing more than scapegoats utilizing this technology.
No. Okay. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think you understand a little bit of this, but I don't think you know anything at all, my friend.
Thanks, Bob. That's why we didn't do that on the radio, my friends, because we knew that Bob was actually a guy named Dick.
No. Actually, there are a lot of people out there that think that they understand when in fact
really
they're clueless. No, I was an analytical chemist before I was a physician.
It's all good, kids.
I know
Again,
this
that
stuff.
one didn't hit the radio, just the
That's
internet.
okay.
Welcome back to Stages of Life Medical Institute show called Stages of Life Radio. Melissa Fox along with the doctor, Dr. David Klein. And we had a call from Jerry. He checked in from Cocoa Beach, Dave. He said his mom had a TIA at 96.
Okay.
And they put her on Bear aspirin, then they took her off.
Okay.
And now they put her on Plavix. and
All
she's
right.
having pain from arthritis. So what else can she do? Can she go back to the bear?
Simplest thing to do. Okay, the most simple of all interventions when people have pain from arthritis, and this is the one that's the hardest of all to do, and that's to cut sugar and carbohydrates out of her diet. Now you're going to wonder, okay, why that's so difficult. Fructose, high fructose corn syrup is actually more addictive than cocaine. And so when you get older and older and older, 96 would qualify as being pretty old. Your taste buds deteriorate, and some of the last taste buds that are functional are for sweet. So if you went through your life and all of a sudden food doesn't taste like anything except that if it's very, very sweet, this is the way these things work. So guess what? What else does that fructose do? It's highly inflammatory to the joints. So the two things I would do would be, one, I would go ahead and cut the carbohydrates straight out of her diet. Substitute whatever else you want. She's 96. Give her something she likes. But the sweet's got to go. You can give her something called Lubricin, which is hyaluronic acid. It's very, very helpful for the knee, shoulder, and hip arthritis. The second thing is called MSM, methylsulfonylmethane. 1 gram twice a day. Very, very useful for the rest of the joints. These are two things that I take every day. And I have for years. My arthritis is doing really, really well. And then the last thing requires a blood test, and that's check her uric acid level. That's urate, U-R-A-T-E. Why is that? Because sometimes elevations in uric acid over about 5.8 or 5.9 can lead to chronic arthritis. And if you can lower the uric acid levels, very frequently the arthritis tends to ease up. And that's another issue that I have. And I would not have ever for a minute believed that it would have made a bit of difference, but it made the biggest difference because now I can walk on my left foot and I couldn't before.
Wow.
Not a bad
one. Thanks,
not a bad
Bob.
one.
407916. I think that was actually Joe. There we go.
Joe?
Yeah, Jerry. There we go. Jerry from Cocoa Beach. Hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, now the deal with Cocoa Beach. Okay, now, what is it that can elevate a uric acid level? Okay, and things like red meat, beer, and shellfish.
Yep.
Okay, 3 things that I happen to like very, very much and had to pretty well give up. Yes.
That stinks. 407-422-1212. If you have a question for the doc. We've been talking about avoiding cancer.
Yes.
Do you remember when that ad campaign, and 321. Do you remember when that ad campaign came out about ketchup and how it was a cancer preventative? They were trying to get kids to eat ketchup with their French fries.
Yeah.
But the high fructose corn syrup certainly
just-
outplays the
No
whole.
kidding. Well, that really was the reason why they did that. Okay, was they were trying to make tomatoes into a vegetable. Okay, tomato ketchup into a vegetable. That way that they could actually get federal money
Right.
for the school lunches at school. So there you go. The ketchup is a vegetable.
And it's
no,
a
wait a second here.
cancer.
The beans, the corn, all this other stuff, those are really vegetables. Actually, corn's not a vegetable, it's a grain. But just the same, ketchup is not healthy for you. But I also remember back in 1969, 1970, that there was a big thing. Mustard causes cancer too.
Mustard is one of the best things for
No
you.
question. Okay, but there's a
Not
big
honey
deal.
mustard, regular straight old dry
Oh, it's good
mustard
stuff.
seed is awesome.
It's marvelous. So what is it about the news that you see out there? Is 3/4 of it is misleading. Okay, I remember back when coffee was bad for you, but before that, coffee was good for you, and before that, it was bad for you, and it'll come
Eggs,
back and
oatmeal,
forth,
steak,
back and forth.
red meat.
All of it.
We do have a caller, I believe. Ron from Cocoa Beach is checking in.
Okie dokie.
Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Sounds like we're running a special in Cocoa Beach.
It
today.
is Cocoa Beach on the horn. So it says here, Ron, you're 55. Got a question about Lipitor. Cholesterol has always been out of whack, but he wants to be a little more holistic about it.
All right.
Are you there, buddy?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. That'd be nice. I'd like to be more holistic,
Okay.
rather than be prescribed this
All right.
horrible statin drug. I hear it has all sorts of side effects.
It can.
I like to do something a little bit more conscious-minded, just like giving a HIV patient something like a reject chemotherapy drug and DNA destroyer.
Oh, how about
is
let's
not a
talk?
wise thing.
How about let's limit our discussion here to.
Well, when you talk.
Hey, he's
Yeah,
gonna
I
try
was
it
right
again.
about that, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, we have infections and we have detection, and so you got people that really they just love and live for nonsense like this. PCR is one of the most interesting diagnostic tools I've ever seen in my life, to the point where I've invested almost $500,000 in them. And what it does is it gives you a look at what may be causing a problem by simply being able to culture it, not to be able to find it in a manner that we used to have to do cultures and sensitivity that would take 3 days to as long as 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So now with little bits and chips of things, we're able to detect what they are. And it's no different than the DNA studies that you do to detect criminals in all kinds of biological fluids. So the argument is the same. Well, gee, HIV, the criminal here, and, it's nonsense. The fact of the matter is it's a fingerprint. These things are bacterial, viral, protozoan fingerprints. And what's neat about it, okay, is that there are about 50,000 of these monsters that have been identified, and their sequences are known. So you can actually figure out what the heck is going on by something called next-generation PCR sequencing. Okay? So what does it really mean? What it really means is that this is a marvel. We're picking up patients that come in with urinary tract infections, and they know they're sick. They know there's something wrong. And you go ahead and you do a routine urinalysis, and you don't find anything because there's a limit of detection there that may not tell you what you need. So you go ahead and you send it out for culture and sensitivity. Well, they come back mixed flora. There's something in there, but we can't really tell you what it is because it's more than one organism. And then we do the PCR, and we're able to see every organism that's in there. And it's remarkable to see how well patients do when you're able to pick the appropriate antibiotic because you happen to know something that we didn't used to know, which was what organism are we trying to treat. So it's going to take a lot more than that yahoo to get me to not use this technology, I've got to tell you. And so somebody asked about the Florida units, the FU units. They're asking how many should Joe Biden take daily? And the question is, how many do you think he should take?
That's a good one. That's our text line. You guys feel free to add your name
Somebody
when you're making
was
funnies. 23680. And the phone lines are still open. 407-422-1212. Dr. David Klein, Stages of Life, medicalinstitute.com. Yeah.
Well, just as a recap, okay? Because I think that there's a lot of confusion out there, not because the data is confusing, but because the people are.
The presentation was too.
Yeah. Well, here is how we make diagnoses of infectious disease in medicine. Number one, and the oldest one, is to sit back and look under the microscope. Now, you can see bacteria under the microscope, or you might not see anything at all. And so for the longest time, you would look around and you'd see bacteria swimming hither and yon, but there were still people getting sick, and they couldn't figure out why if they couldn't see it. Now, before Pasteur and Lister and all those people did that wonderful work, they didn't know to look in a microscope for the bacterial agents. So they thought that other things were causing these diseases. So we would bleed people. They'd come in and they'd be septic. So what do you do? You'd cut them and bleed them. All right. So the microscope was the first diagnostic tool that was really of best use. Now, following that, we did these things called culture and sensitivities, and they would take whatever the biological junk would be. It could be secretions, it could be fecal material, urine, it could be blood, it could be whatever, and you would put it on these agar media. Before that, they were liquid media, and you would see what would grow out. And then from that, you'd be able to amplify the bacteria that were in there and be able to more easily identify it. And that was the reason why you did the culture and sensitivity, is you let them grow so you could find them. That process could take 3 days, 5 days, but it could take 6, 12 weeks or more, depending upon how slow the organism is.
Gotcha.
Now, then all of a sudden they had these things called filterable diseases. These were diseases that would go through a paper filter and infect the next organism. So we found that those were viruses. Now, we couldn't see them until the electron micrograph was invented, but we knew they were there. Filterable diseases. So we keep getting better and better and better at making these diagnoses using the technology that's available. So the PCR is something that is absolutely revolutionizing the ability for doctors and others to make diagnosis of an infectious disease nature. There's nothing, and there's nothing about this that has anything to do with some bizarre kind of a plot against you. It just is what it is. Yeah. So when I had my PCR done, okay, when I was coming down and getting sick, we checked for 21 different organisms with that one PCR. And what do you know? COVID popped out. Okay, I don't think that the machine really gave a damn which one it was.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way these things go. So the PCR finds little bits and pieces, magnifies it, a trillion times actually, and it makes it easier to pick up in an infrared spectrophotometer.
Now remember, you have to have your head screwed on pretty tight if you want to take on the doctor when it comes to these things.
This is what I do for a living.
It's just sort of his job.
For 40 years.
Yeah, 407-422-1212. Or you can text in at 23680 and show your creativity as well. How many Florida units should I buy?
Yeah, well, somebody was listening.
Yeah, and that's good to know.
But I think I'm going to do that on my reports. I'll call them Florida units.
You do that.
Or FUs.
We'll be right back. FUs. Whoops.
Yeah.
Let me fix that. Linda asked for permission to hang up on jerks like that.
Oh,
guy
but
that
Linda,
keeps
you have
going
my
back.
permission.
Yeah, I saw the name come up twice on the caller ID, and I tried to warn her, and then she was like, "No, it's not the same one."
Yeah.
It was, but it's all good. It happens. Anyway, so no big deal.
And HIV is a terrible disease. Why pick on HIV? It's a virus. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's just one of those sorts of things. It's kind of hard to get rid of. Mm-hmm. So are genital warts. Okay, they're hard to get rid of too.
That's kind of true.
So is herpes. That's a real bummer to get rid of. There are lots and lots of viral illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a virus? What's a bacterium? What's a protozoan? These are things that we concern ourselves with. Most of them are benign. Most of them will not cause you any disease, but there are a few that will. You need to know the difference. So now, are we on Facebook or are we on the air right now?
We're just on Facebook.
Good. Okay.
Wait, Bob, I'm confused. It did give a damn. You just hang up. So this guy can have his infomercial and challenge. No. HIV has never been proven to be the cause of AIDS. Okay, Bob is mad at you now.
Oh, I don't care. No, actually, I remember the first reports.
Thanks, Bob.
First reports of AIDS were in 1981. I remember because I was an intern in general surgery at the time, and it took a while before they were able to identify the virus. So now, is there one virus that causes it? There's one genus, but they're different. They're different types. Subtypes.
Now, Bob wants you to look at somebody named something or other. Doctor. Wait, hold on. Here we go. Hold on. Carrie Mullins, Peter Duisberg.
Okay. Well, and that's fine, well and good. That's okay. The fact of the matter is that AIDS is no longer the death sentence it once was by the use of these antivirals.
Bob, it's one thing to call in and challenge a show. And first of all, this is not an infomercial. Second of all, it's another thing to call in under the guise of one thing just because you want to have your own show. So
no,
if
we can
you'd
arrange
like
that.
to have your own show, you may speak with me off air, and if you have the ducats and the kahunas.
Because it really does. It's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, but anyone can call in and go, "Oh, you're wrong," and dispute and throw names and facts out.
Or what they think are facts. So.
Boy, that finally came through. Wow, it's going to come on like 4 different times. Don't worry, we answered that one. But I
just took a while to get there.
And it took a really long time to get there. Let's see.
Is too an infomercial. Is too.
Is that what he said? Great.
Leading virologist on the planet. Well, there you go. All right, then. It's put out there. You can do what you need to do.
Yeah, I would. If I were here, I'd open up a clinic someplace and start healing people. First, he'll have to go to Mexico to do it. I remember the old Laetrile days. You've got cancer. Go to Mexico because Laetrile. That'll work. The world is full of them.
The world is full of them.
Conspiracy
Welcome back.
of the day.
How are you? Stages of Life Radio. Not an infomercial, but a live call-in show where Dr. David Klein tries to answer your medical questions in a concise and understandable manner. And occasionally he uses words that to me is like French.
Yeah, well, sometimes you do.
It happens. It does. But anyway, the lines are open. This is our last segment at 407-422-1212. And if you want, you can follow us on the social media under Stages of Life Medical Institute. And you, too, can be like Bob. Anyway.
Well, people are not out there conspiring against you, Bob. We're not conspiring against you.
No, I don't really care that much.
No.
So
it doesn't.
anyway, moving right
and
along.
it makes us look really bad when we don't get it right and people don't get better.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Well, yeah, it is. Now, again, the whole Fauci thing and too much information, not enough at first, and then as they learned and go, and people kept as you learn and you amend your
Well,
your
it's like
words.
much of anything else, okay? Yeah, you go back to the basics with these things. Okay, so the good Dr. Fauci has made more mistakes than he's hit things right.
Right, and he's also the highest paid dude in the country.
Yeah, and that's just the way that it works.
Just the way it is.
Highest paid federal employee. So if he can't get it right, I guess that's who cares, right? Well, I kind of care.
I do.
So coronavirus is a gastrointestinal virus. It is a zoogenic virus. What does that mean? It means it's in cattle, dogs, cats, animals. And then it sits there, does its thing, and then sometimes breaks across to other species like humans.
Oh.
And when it does, it causes issues. MERS, SARS, and some of these other things were coronaviruses. So we've seen coronaviruses before. This one turned out to be a little bit more virulent than the others. What does it mean? It means more people are likely to get really sick and or really die. Different influenzas have the same kind of effect. Influenza 1918, H1N1, they have a tendency to make a lot of people sick and they make a lot of people die. How often do they come around? They come around periodically. That means that it's almost predictable when the next one's going to occur. So MARS and SARS in the 1990s, this is 20 years later, 25 years later, we can probably expect the next one in 25 years. Although, because we did something this time that we didn't do to the others, flattening the curve out, we're probably going to see this thing last a little bit longer. And that's kind of what happened. By not letting the herd get the infection, we made this thing last longer. Now, is it a bad thing? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Do I think that the answer to all of this is wearing masks? Absolutely not. I don't think that's the answer to anything. You're far more likely to protect yourself from COVID by washing your hands, keeping your hands away from your face, and oddly enough, wearing eyeglasses to protect your eyes from it. So these are the sorts of things that are very important. Putting a mask on is not going to hurt you, okay? And it may keep somebody from throwing something at you, but it just doesn't hurt. With those masks, though, understand, this was what Fauci did early on. He said, well, people aren't even going to know how to use them. You've had a year's worth of practice to learn how to use it, and most people don't know how to use it. How long does a paper mask last before it has to be changed?
About 4 hours?
No, it's about an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, hour and a half, and it is saturated. Okay, it is not giving you any protection at all. How many people change it every hour to hour and a half? And the answer is, well, early on in the pandemic, you couldn't because there weren't enough to go around. So what about these cloth masks? They get every bit as filthy as a baby's diaper. And so what do? Well, I think I'm going to leave this on all day long. And I'm going to touch it and then touch something else. And so if you really want to get disgusted, go to the grocery store and watch people touch their mask and then touch the fruit that's out in front of you or the vegetables or the stuff that's on the shelf. So the masks actually may be vectors of illness as well. And that was what Fauci was talking about. He just didn't articulate it very well. Was he wrong? No, he was just wrong in the way he explained it. So you have to use your masks properly. And then guess what? Social distancing does in fact work. Why is that? Because you're not getting all up in somebody's face. So what is it about family gatherings that's so darn dangerous? Why is it you can't do it? The answer is because it gets transmitted in the food. If you don't watch the way you prepare your food, you're going to make your entire family sick, which, by the way, happened more than once. If you want to make a bunch of families sick all at one time, go on a cruise ship. That was the problem with the cruise ships. It was the food supply. It wasn't that some porter came around and gave everybody a kiss on the lips.
But see, that's always been the issue with the food, and
of course,
the H1N1 or whatever. It's how
or
you get it.
Norovirus.
It's the buffet.
Yeah, norovirus is in the water supply. So, that's really what this is all about. And if you really think that there's a simple answer to this that's understandable by most people, you would be dead wrong. Because most people just don't get it, and they're not going to. So you have to make rules that are standardized for everybody. That's the reason why we're going to be wearing the darn mask.
No.
It's one rule, everybody, call it simple and being done with it. But do you really think it's necessarily going to work?
No.
We'll see.
I don't think so. How are we going to get to herd immunity, Doc?
We're already there.
Oh.
Now, why do I say that? And I'm going to get a bunch of people yelling at me for this one.
And here comes the
okay?
yells.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating, okay? The fact that the case rate has dropped off so substantially suggests herd immunity. Okay, now does that mean we're not going to see any COVID cases? The answer is negatory, Batman. What it means is that the rate is going to drop substantially. So if it dropped 72% last week, do you think it's going to drop again? Well, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to peter its way down because it doesn't take 70% of the population becoming exposed or inoculated to see these things disappear. Because if that were not the case, we would not see the number of influenza cases run around. So if 15% of the population get flu shots, and that's just about it. Okay, why do we only end up with a few 100,000 cases of flu, and 30,000 deaths? Herd immunity happens pretty quickly. So that's my thought process on it, and more so, most people don't even know. Most doctors don't even know what the percentage is.
I'm hearing these threats of a resurge or
there's going to be
swell in March.
No, it's going to happen again. Is next fall is when we're going to see it, because by that point, much of the immunity is going to have waxed and waned and have decreased. So when they come out, and it's not a question of if, but when they come out with COVID boosters, what do you think you need to do? You go get the darn booster. Try to do it. Try to do it on a Friday or Saturday so you don't miss any time from work for the achiness. Just in case. But yeah, get it done. That's just the way these things go. I went and got a pertussis booster so I could safely talk to my new grandkids.
Good.
Okay, why? Because that is the way it works. Yeah, it cost me $65. Medicare didn't cover it because I'm too old. Go figure that one out. Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy. Tess got it for free. I got it for $65.
Doesn't make any dang sense.
Nothing makes sense.
That did not make sense.
Okay, if you think that life should make sense, you're living a dream.
Pectin for diarrhea. It's our last question. Go ahead and answer.
It's fine.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can take charcoal. That works beautifully also. But best bet is just to let it run its course.
Fantastic. Hey, guys, any questions unanswered, you can always find some answers for them at stagesofliferadio.com. Just key in your question to the search bar and woohoo, go crazy.
Imagine that.
Yeah, look at that.
407-679-3337. Should you decide you want to come outpatient, suffernomore.com and stagesoflifevitamins.com.
Yep, and we'll have the doc back on our show, Connections, later on this week. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye.
Adios.
You've been listening to Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Check out stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com or stop by 1917 Booth Circle in Longwood near the intersection of I-4 and 434. Call 407-679-3337. That's 407-679-3337. Dr. Klein accepts most insurance and Medicare too. Join us next Sunday at 4 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando.